right, ladies and gentlemen, so like I said, today we are working on Unit 3, Lesson 12, the movement of sprites. And again, what we are building towards is our project where we are eventually going to have a scrolling type platformer simple game. So that's where we're going with this. All right, so we are in Unit 3, Lesson 12. And we are going to start with bubble number 1. You guys, it's kind of pretty simple stuff. That's what we always do. All right, so let's take a quick look. So we have this thing called a counter pattern. So this is going to be a new line of code. This pattern is one of the most important ones of all time in programming, especially for game design. So it says x equals x plus 1. It is used to increase the value of a variable by 1. You might call it the counter pattern since it's being used to make a variable that counts up. You will be using this pattern a lot, especially inside of the draw loop. So let's see. It says this program creates a variable counter and then uses the counter pattern to make it count up. When you run the program, what do you think you will see on the screen? Read the program, run the program to check your prediction. All right, so let's read the program first. This is the program. We have a variable that we created. It says counter gets the value of 0. Then I have a draw loop where I have my background. Now I'm not animating anything, so there's no draw sprite here, but that's okay. My background, line 1, yay. And then it says text size, counter, text counter, 0 to 400, counter equals counter plus 1. So give me a prediction. What do we think is going to happen? Somebody go ahead and either put in the chat or it's going to show a counter pattern. Okay, maybe. So again, text size is counter, text counter 0 to 400, counter equal counter plus 1. So as I run the program, again, it's going to be some kind of counter pattern. Sure, let's see what actually happens. So go ahead and type in whatever your prediction is, and then we're going to go ahead and run the program. And what I'm seeing is a counter, but what am I also seeing? These text numbers are getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. This is an example of what we can do if we use this counter pattern, this thing that we're calling a counter pattern, inside of the draw loop. And I want you to notice it's animating smoothly. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So every time the number changes, the size increases. Close, yes. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and reset this. Once you have done this, go ahead and hit finish. So that way it gets sent to the teacher side. Let me make this smaller. What is going on? Okay, here we go. So we are now going to figure out how to animate our sprites. And again, this is going to be instrumental when it comes to what is eventually going to be our game.
You can animate with sprites too. To do this, you'll need to update their properties inside the draw loop using the counter pattern. For example, this program creates a sprite called MySprite. Then, inside the draw loop, it uses the counter pattern to increase the sprite's X position by 1 in each frame. This makes the sprite move smoothly across the screen. Adding a second sprite to a program is easy. You just use the create sprite command again. This program animates 2 sprites called Sprite 1 and Sprite 2. Sprite 1 uses the counter pattern to move across the screen by adding 1 to its X property. Sprite 2 moves down by adding 1 to the Y property on each tick of the draw loop. These sprites have lots of other properties, but our program only needs to deal with the ones that are changing. Sprites already help you write more readable programs, and they are going to be extremely helpful and powerful tools for making fun games and animations. So stay tuned.
All right, let me get out of this. All right, so that was an introduction to the counter pattern, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you were paying attention at the end of the video, and I will just kind of fast forward there myself right now.
Fun games and animations. So stay tuned.
So she is surrounded by very simple scroller games, which is very much like the ones that we will be creating in this class. So these are all examples of scroller type games, which is what we are building towards. Anyways, once we're finished with that video, go ahead and hit continue. And then we will take a look at some introductory stuff using the counter pattern. All right, so for bubble number 3, ladies and gentlemen, we are trying to get our sprites to move. It says, using the counter pattern, you can write programs that animate sprites smoothly. Adding to or removing from a sprite's X, again, X is across, or Y property, Y is up and down on a grid, you can make your sprite move just a little bit each time it is redrawn. Do this. Read the code that makes the jet go up the screen. Add code that makes the plane move to the right in the sample image. So in the image, I have the jet moving up. I have the plane going across. That's what I want mine to be able to do. So I like to turn on my grid. That's just a me thing. When I hit run, my jet is moving up, but my plane is just sitting there. So I need to add a counter pattern in the X position for my plane. Because again, I know it needs to be the X position because X, in my sample, it's going across. Y is always up and down. X is always across. So I need to update my X position for my plane inside of my draw loop. Okay, the first thing we are going to need is math. And no, the first thing I'm going to need is my variable. So I need to assign my variable. Okay, so I'm going to drag that in. X equals something. And all I'm doing is I'm using this one here as a model because I know the jet's working fine. I mean, if I'm just kind of like looking at it, oops, well, I can't, it won't run now because I added code, but the jet was running fine. So I am just going to use that as a model for what I need to do. But I know that my plane needs to move in the X direction. So I'm going to bring that in and I'm going to say, okay, sprite X is equal to math counter pattern adding. Now I want to add to my X position. Now this says plus minus 3, so I'm going to maybe just do this as plus 3, and that's okay. Now I want to also point out the fact that I need to change the name of my sprite to plane. Remember, I named my variable plane. There is no variable named sprite. So I need to change the name of the sprite to plane in both locations. So now what I'm doing is I'm saying every time I run the draw loop, I want to update my plane, that animation, the plane's X position.
Wait, Miss Cano.
Yes.
Okay, I'm a little I'm starting to get a little confused on how did you get the +3 and all that stuff. It's just jumbled.
Okay, no, let me start over. Okay, so all I'm doing is I am using the jet, which is obviously working properly, correct? So I know that code works right. That's great. I'm going to use that code right there, line 9 of code. I'm going to use it as a model to get my plane to work in the X direction.
Yeah, no, and you add the X value, right? Yeah, but my problem is the second part where you add the other X, and then it just turned into X,
Okay,
yeah.
Yep, that's fine. We're just going to go through it step by step. So the first layer of code that I see here is this purple X equals. So I'm going to assign that in. Perfect. Then I have, now this says jet.y, but I know that I want my plane to move in the X direction. So again, notice it's pink. I'm going to go into my pink drawer and I'm going to pull that in because I know I want to update my sprite's X location. Here I see orange. I'm going to go into my math drawer, which is orange, and I'm going to do a counter, which is I'm going to say, okay, something plus something else. Now, what am I counting? I am counting up my sprite's X location, and I'm just going to choose to add 3. You can add 1, you can add, like the bigger the number, the faster it's going to move. But I'm just using 3 because they use 3. Once I have this, technically my code is set. The problem is I do not have any variable named sprite. Instead, I need to change the word sprite to the word plane because that is what the sprite is named inside the code. All right, you with me?
Yep, I get it. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. All right, so again, all I did was use line 9 as a model to create line 12. That's like literally what I did. The only difference here is that instead of using .y, I am updating the X position. So I have .x. So once I do that, I'm going to go ahead and hit reset run. And now I can see my jet moving up and my plane moving over. And it's happening nice and smoothly because, again, my first line of code is my background. My last line of code is my draw sprites. All right, so once you have that, go ahead and hit finish and continue. And wait for your computer to be really slow. At least my computer is. All right, so if adding to a sprite's X coordinate makes it move to the right, how do we make something move to the left? Make your program animate the image to the right. Update the fly.x inside the draw loop so that each frame the fly is drawn a little bit further to the left. You can make your sprites move faster by adding or subtracting larger numbers. The fly in our example should move about twice as fast as the plane in the last level. Okay, so let's see what happens. If I hit run, my fly just sits there. All right, I need to create a counter pattern to get my fly to move to the left. Okay, so in order to do that,
Can I say it or?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so to get it to move, you have to put the X variables down, and you have to, yep. And then once you do that, you have to go on the math and stuff, and you go to the addition sign.
You want to do adding? Okay.
Yeah. Wait, no, wait. Yes.
Okay, fine. What else?
And then you add the other sprite, which you add the other sprite to the other side, and then you will have to label them both fly since there's no sprite named sprite.
Okay.
And then you just and then do you add a number and stuff?
Sure. Give me a number.
A number. Can it be negative, something like that?
I can try a negative.
-2. Oh, yeah.
Okay, we good?
Yep.
All right, reset and run. Now, it is working. So, good on you. I do want to point out what I would have, by the way, this works. So, yay you. there is a minus here. So instead of having to put -2, you could have just said minus and then just put a +2 if that makes any sense. Mathematically, same exact thing. So you could have replaced the positive with the minus. But again, this code works perfectly, so I wouldn't necessarily want to change it. Like I said, the cool thing with coding is that my code and your code might still do the job, even though it looks different. So this is not what I would have done. I would have probably just used the minus. But again, he chose you plus a negative number, which hopefully we all know from math class is the same thing as minusing. So good job. All right. Yeah, there is a multiplier in here as well. And we'll get to that eventually. All right, so we're going to go ahead. Any other issues or questions with bubble 4? All right, we're going to go ahead and hit finish and continue. Okay, so now we are going to update both the X and the Y at the same time. This will make things move diagonally. Awesome. All right, it says read the code that makes the mouse go down. Run the program to look at the watchers to see what is happening with mouse X and mouse Y properties. Add one more line of code to make your mouse move diagonally. Run your code and make sure that it works. And then use the sprite's rotation properties so that so that it faces in the direction it is moving. Okay, so a lot of things happening on this one. So let me first do this and close that. Now I like to turn on my grid, and you'll see why in a minute. So if I go ahead and hit run, there's my mouse, and it's just moving down. I want it to move, reset. I want it to move across. Ladies and gentlemen, pay close attention. As I'm moving across, look at the value of my X and my Y. What's happening to the value of my X and my Y? This is why I love turning my grid on. As I'm moving diagonally across my screen. My X is doing what? My Y is doing what? Anybody?
Slowly getting to the end, right?
As I'm slowly going they're going what?
They're going to the end.
Yeah, but look at the actual numbers.
It's changing it to Y and X gradually.
X is going up, Y is going up.
Well,
yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so I already see inside my counter pattern that it's asking my Y to go up. What do I now have to also ask it to do? I need to ask it to make my X go up. Because if my X and Y are going up at the same time, I am going to move diagonally. And I can see that because when my grid's on, as I move my mouse diagonally, they're both increasing at the same time. All right, so let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to bring in my variable. I'm going to bring in my X. I'm going to bring in my math. I'm going to go back to my sprite and bring in another X. Now this one says +2, so I'm just going to make it +2. That way it's moving in the X and the Y direction at the same time. I need to change the word sprite to mouse. The word sprite gets turned into mouse as well. M-O-U-S-E. Okay. So all I did was I added another line of code that is making my mouse change at the same time in the X direction as in the Y direction. All right, so we're going to go ahead and hit run on this and see what happens. So now it's going down diagonally. Yay. Now, there was something where it said, well, can you add something in the rotation of the mouse to make it face the correct direction? So that way its nose is facing down. Yes, we can. So my mouse rotation, if that is at 0, I want to spin it. Let me try 45. Okay, I went the wrong way. So negative 45. There it goes. So again, all I did was update my. Why did I put the rotation for the mouse outside of the draw loop? Can anybody tell me? Why would it be outside of the draw loop? Do I need to always update the rotation, or once I set it, is it just set? Thank you. Yes, somebody in the chat. So yeah, you only need to set it once, just like you only need to set the animation once. You only want it to be facing in this one direction. You don't need to constantly update it. So good job. All right, so we are going to go ahead and hit finish on this one. Continue. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we see this code. Look at your draw loop. Red car, yellow car, blue car, green car. Look at the draw loop. I want you to make a prediction as to which line of code is going to be drawn using this. Notice my red car is going +4 in the X. So I would expect my red car to be moving in the positive direction across in the X direction. Is that going to be A, B, C, or D? Again,
I
red
would
car.
say C.
You would say C? Well, let's find out. I believe you are correct. What? Yep, it is C, actually. That's what it looks like. B has Y. I agree with you. Red is definitely positive in B, but that's positive Y. You see how it's moving positively in the Y direction? So there's that. All right, so we have bubble 6 done. So bubble 6 is C. So as always, ladies and gentlemen, the practice bubble and the assessment bubble are for you. In bubble 7, you'll be doing A, B, and C. So you'll be doing spinning, which is where you will be updating the counter pattern of rotation using rotation. You're trying to get a motorcycle to move across the screen, and you'll try to get gears to rotate together. So you'll be updating the counter pattern. Instead of using X and Y, we'll be using the rotation for A and C. And then for lesson 8, bubble 8, you are going to be making this program do this. So where you have a blue fish moving really, really fast, an orange fish moving kind of quickly, and a green fish moving very slowly across the screen. All right, as always, ladies and gentlemen, your challenges, you are welcome to play with them as much as you want, but they are not required. So again, you can play with this if you choose to, but it's not required. But again, at this time, we have a few moments left, so let's get working on 7 and 8 in our code.org. If you have any issues or questions, as always, please feel free to ask.